we are talking about rejection sensitivity dysphoria today. And this has been like I've coached now for 8 years almost, and over 10,000 one-on-one calls with top real estate agents, and then ran a team, for 8 years before that. That was 100 in the world for Keller Williams. And there is a theme that I'm seeing more and more, I think, like the more time I get. And it's like this rejection sensitivity dysphoria. It's big. This is really, really big. And I did this call in the last like 2 months, I think, but we have a lot of new people and it keeps coming up. And so what I wanted to do today is I want to do it again. Yeah, I think we could do it every month because this is one of the things to unlocking some of this resistance, I think, is identifying what this is and having some tips. And so I want to go deeper today to help you identify when it shows up, and then a little bit deeper in what some things you can do about it. Because I just think it's really, really important. And it could be the key to unlocking a lot if you're feeling stuck or trouble in lead gen or things like that. So rejection sensitivity dysphoria. Is anybody, and you can raise your hand or put it in the chat, but felt like this fear of rejection before in real estate or in life, friends, right? Like all of us, right? Rejection. And so what happens is a lot of times, if you've had coaches before, they say, oh, like just, get over it, or, you just got to do it, or, it's not that bad, or here's what I did to get over it. Like suck it up, all those things. And what most people are missing in the entrepreneurial world or real estate world or anything is that rejection sensitivity dysphoria, which is correlated to ADHD and autism, is so different than just fear of rejection. It's a totally different thing. So rejection sensitivity dysphoria, Dr. Ned Hollowell thinks that anywhere from 75 to 100% of people who are neurodivergent experience this, and it is fear of rejection on steroids. And what they've done, because I like science papers, right? And I like to read medical studies because I'm a nerd, is they've identified parts of the brain that respond differently to the fear of rejection, and literally physical and emotional pain signals in the brain light up by perceived rejection, criticism, or failure. Like literally the brain creates emotional pain at the perceived thought, and it might not even be full on rejection. It might just be neutral and you perceive it as rejection, and it causes pain. So if you have trouble networking, if you have trouble calling people, if there's certain things that you're door knocking, whatever that is, putting social media reels on there, putting your face out there, asking friends to hang out, dating, all of that stuff makes sense, because it's not just, oh, I'm scared of rejection. Like it literally creates pain. Right? And like as human beings, we have two main motivators. It's going towards pleasure or going away from pain. Those are like biological motivators, right? You touch a hot stove, you're going to pull your hand back right away, just automatically. We don't even think about it, right? And then going towards pleasure, especially us, because we might have lower dopamine levels. So going away from pain, going towards pleasure. And so here's this, and like, which one is stronger? Right? Do you know which one is stronger? Going away from pain or going towards pleasure? Which one's stronger? Pain. Totally, totally. That is like the strongest motivator of a human being. And out of going towards pain or going away from pleasure, it's going away from pain, right? If like, for example, like, if a hot stove, right, you're gonna pull your hand off very quickly. Like you don't even think about it. Whereas like going towards pleasure, like making cookies, right? Like you might want to make cookies because that's great, and you like love cookies and gluten-free cookies if you're gluten-free. But you're not going to go for that the same urgency and the same automatic thing like you would pulling your hand off a hot stove, right? And so if you have had trouble with lead gen your whole life, or calling people, or fear of rejection, I've said this before, it's not an excuse, it's an explanation, right? It doesn't mean you've been making excuses. Like you're literally avoiding emotional pain in your brain. So what are some signs that you might be experiencing this? Let's go into this. One, very easy to feel embarrassed or self-conscious. Two, might show signs of self-esteem or maybe trouble believing in ourselves. Next one, have trouble containing emotions when we feel rejected. You might see this more noticeable in kids or teenagers. So there might be anger, there might be rage, might burst into tears, might like just run away or hide or go inside. Sometimes we can turn our feelings inward. So this is something I experienced as a kid. If I was angry, if I felt rejected, which I did as a kid, like not reading social cues, we can turn it inward, and it can actually be like a snap onset of depression, or like sometimes like different disorders can happen as well. So like when I would get angry or I'd feel sad, instead of being like, oh, I'm angry at them for making fun of me, or I'm angry at them for not including me, I would like turn that and be angry at myself and like not like myself and be depressed, which in therapy, I was able to shift that and then actually feel anger towards stuff. And so it was wild. So we can often be people pleasers, right? Intensely focus on avoiding disapproval of other people. We might avoid starting projects or tasks or goals where there's a chance of failure. If you've ever experienced that, I know probably a lot of us have. We might compensate for this fear of failure or rejection by going all out or striving for perfectionism. Right. But then we also might experience intense anxiety and not like make self-care or downtime a priority. So we're constantly trying to achieve. We might misinterpret harmless or mildly negative social cues or behaviors as blatant rejection. So again, if you might take something neutral and think it's rejection when it's not. We might ignore explanations or reasons for perceived rejection or even reassurances from the perceived person. And this is interesting, and I'm going deep in this because I wanted to do this. Is sometimes either in dating or friendships, unless someone's like blatantly affirming, we might not even know they like us. If you have gravitated towards what's called love bombing, right, in the beginning of a relationship, whether it's a friendship or especially a romantic relationship, where someone's just constantly, giving you affection and future pace, it's like, oh my gosh, somebody actually likes me, somebody actually cares about me. When it might be manipulative, it might be narcissism, it might be somebody that's unhealthy, but we don't always register that someone likes us unless it's like blatant and constant. And so that's something to be aware of as well. If you've consistently gotten relationships that are
True.
maybe one-sided, we might expect rejection or overreact to any type of negative social cues. So before we even call, we expect to be rejected. We future pace the rejection and what that's doing. Like, have you had that where it's like you think about calling and then you think about how it might not be good or what they might say, and then you don't even call at all because you have perceived pain? Like what your brain is doing is trying to protect you and avoid pain. That's what you're like reluctancy or lead gen reluctancy. Your brain says, ooh, there's pain there. I want to help you. We're not going to do that. Right. So some of this is like overriding. Yeah, like overriding. We got to be aware of it. That's why I'm doing this again, so soon because it's so important. So we also might be more avoidant. We might be more anxious in romantic relationships. We might be both, right? We might avoid hard conversations. We might be very like worried that we're going to get abandoned. We might pay more attention to all the times we're rejected more than the times we're accepted. So if we got included in social situations 5 times, but we got rejected once, we're going to focus on the one time and then think, oh man, people don't want to include me. I did this in school all the time. Right. And that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Whereas like 5 times out of the 6, I was approved of, or included. Um, we might evaluate every interaction for perceived rejection, right? Like hypervigilance of what did that tone mean? What does this text mean? Why didn't they call? Why did they take so long? Those kinds of things. We might have, again, persistent emotional or physical distress when facing real or perceived rejection, criticism, or teasing. You might feel it in your body. You might feel tense. You might feel sick. If it's long term, like in a consistent relationship around you where you constantly feel rejected, you might have physical somatic symptoms of rejection. Because again, it's emotional and physical pain that can be triggered. Feelings of anxiety when we're disliked or not accepted, even if we don't know them, need for approval or validation or frustration, like when we don't get it. So we might also seek validation from partners beyond the normal level. Like we need them to validate our self-worth. That's something I've worked on a lot. I've done a lot of therapy. You guys know that. I'm a big fan of that. But yeah, I used to look to partners for self-esteem because I like couldn't foster it myself. And that's not fair to put on a person, right? So all of this stuff can be worked on, by the way. So more sense of hopelessness sometimes, fear of failure, social rejection, just an overall sense that maybe we're not likable by others in general. Social withdrawal, we might have thoughts of self-harm, negative self-talk, rumination, relationship challenges, defensive,ness, right? Like this is we're not even getting into real estate. This is just how this can show up. And so that can be painful. It can be really isolating, especially if we're neurodivergent and we might miss cues. Or again, we've heard me say how a neurodivergent kid gets 20,000 negative messages about their behavior by the age of 8 years old. So we're like, think of having this fear of rejection and then being critiqued that 20,000 more times than our peers by the age of 8 years old. So if you have low self-esteem, like duh, right? You're going to, and there's something you can do about it. It's really interesting if you overthink like all of those things, right? So it's really important to acknowledge what it is. So for example, if we're like going to do lead generation or we're in a social interaction and this happens, one of the most powerful things you can do is recognize like, ooh, could this be, it doesn't mean you have to say, yes, this is it, but could this be a little bit of my like RSD, right? Rejection sensitivity dysphoria. Because even that naming it disrupts the story of, oh, they're rejecting me because I'm not good enough. Right. So it's like, could this, you don't have to say this is, right? We don't have to go all or nothing, but could this be maybe a little bit of my own fear of rejection? So that's one that can be really helpful in reframing. Here's a list of some things that they list. So one, and I'm going to start this list out, and I'm not saying this is the first thing you need to go to, but there is some medicine that actually helps. Like this is a thing. So I've talked about this a little bit before. There's two different medicines, and I'm trying to think of what the second one is. So one of them is called glomphazine. Glomphazine is a medicine, and it's off-label for ADHD, and it's actually can help with PTSD and anxiety. And what it does is it like activates specific type of chemical receptors found on the neurons in specific brain areas. Glomphazine and then clonidine, that was the other one. So they activate these receptors and they make them more active. And so it actually helps our brain have an easier time to regulate internal communication, which actually reduces the effect of rejection sensitivity dysphoria. So those obviously talk to your doctor. They're not controlled substances. Glomphazine is typically used for lowering your heart rate. So again, I start with medication. So this is not you being crazy or too soft or too sensitive. If a medicine can literally help, right? This is a chemical thing. Now, you don't have to take medicine for it. There are a lot of other options. So one is, I would say, first off, recognizing if that could be it, right? What is the evidence you have? We call the 100% true model in coaching. Like, how do you know 100% that they're rejecting you? And if you don't, right, you just think or you have a gut feel or something like that, then that's when I would say, okay, maybe it's a little bit of the RSD coming in. So when we want to feel the pain, like it's also okay to feel sad or disappointment if we're rejected, right? Like if you're losing a relationship, a job, you don't get a lead, you lose a client, like you want to feel your feelings. And a lot of times we feel deeply. And so that's a really healthy thing to do. So just acknowledge if there was a loss, we don't want to just gaslight ourselves and say, oh, this is just RSD, like suck it up, or it's fine. We want to say, hey, I feel disappointed and that's okay that I didn't get this client or I didn't get included, and feel that versus resisting it. The next thing we want to do is reframe the situation. So a lot of times with rejection sensitivity dysphoria, who do we blame if we get rejected? Who do we point the finger at or blame? Ourselves or the other person? Yep, ourselves. Totally. Think, oh, something's probably wrong with me, or I missed something, I didn't do something right. Yeah, we blame ourselves. And so that's something really to be aware of, is that we tend to blame ourselves, and we can take any slight as major rejection, and we already tend to have a negative narrative towards ourselves. I mean, everyone does, by the way, not even just ADHD, but ours can be turned up even more so. And so if we're adding on, first we get rejected and that hurts, and then we tell ourselves there's something wrong with us, like that is a cycle that just does not feel good, right? That's going to weigh you down. If you're burned out, if you're tired, if you're depressed, like I would say that really watching that could help alleviate some of that, if it's part of the issue. So we want to reframe the situation in a way that doesn't blame ourselves. So for example, if like we call somebody cold calling and they're really rude and they hang up on us, instead of like, man, I'm terrible at this, or why did I say it like that? That's so silly. It's like, oh, maybe they were really busy, or maybe they're having a hard day, and that's okay. So instead of pointing to ourselves, if we can find a neutral way to say that, or if we don't get invited into a friend group, or if we get rejected by somebody romantically, networking group, something. It's like, oh, maybe just our communication style didn't align, or maybe it's not the best fit or the perfect fit. So again, we're not just harping on ourselves, because that just makes it worse, right? Um, so we can minimize a bit of the emotional impact. Next thing is black and white thinking. So I've talked about this a little bit. We definitely have black and white thinking. A lot of us can have that. It's like, I'm either perfect or I'm a failure, right? I either do it or I don't do it at all. They either love me or they don't like me. I'm either gonna do well this year or not at all. So watching that all or nothing thinking is really helpful. And one way that you're gonna recognize that is the keywords like never, always, every time. We're looking for thinking in absolutes. And if you have autism, if you have substance abuse, if you've got PTSD, if you have ADHD, which you probably do because you're on this call, if you have autism, all of those are known for black and white thinking, and it's a big trauma response, because it's like we need to know biologically if something's safe or not, right? So if you have trauma, which a lot of us do, it's like this person's safe or they're not safe, right? The situation's safe or it's not safe. They're either bad or good. I either like this person or I don't at all. And it like kind of protects us. And so sometimes we can get into this like, oh my gosh, they didn't include me. They don't like me at all, right? Or maybe it's like they didn't include me this time. Maybe they just wanted to talk themselves. So watch for the always, never, every time. And another thing that you can look for is like, are there only two options? That's another way to identify. Is it only the black and white, or is it, well, maybe they rejected me because they don't like me. Also, maybe they were really busy. Also, maybe they didn't know I wanted to be included. Also, maybe they're tired. Also, maybe they're intimidated. There's so many other options besides one or the other. So we'll probably do another call on black and white thinking and go deeper on that, because you'd be surprised at how much that shows up. So another one is take this as an opportunity to become resilient and bounce back. So we all get rejected, right? At various points throughout our lives, and what matters is like, does that derail us? And so how do we become resilient and bounce back, and kind of frame it that way, versus like, man, I got rejected again. It's like, okay, I got rejected and now I'm going to come back stronger. I'm going to come back again. I'm going to come back stronger. Keep going. That's the next one. Right. And some of it's just continuing to move forward. That's one thing. It's just, don't let it derail you. Find a different way to do that. Therapy is really helpful. If that's a persistent issue, talk to a therapist. You can do CBT and some different thinking patterns of how to interrogate reality and work through that. Learn about RSD, what you're doing right now, and what the symptoms are and what the traits. Also, here's another one: focus on a supportive environment. So if you have people in your life that are continually triggering your RSD, have a conversation with them, right? Tell them what's helpful, what's not helpful. If they're continually violating your boundaries and harming you, then it might be time to distance yourself or remove them from your life. Right? We need to have a supportive environment. If you have a partner, if you have a friend, a roommate, a neighbor, someone, a coworker, an office that's continually making you feel like you're not good enough, you can do all the coping skills in the world, but it takes brain power, right? And so if you remove that, what would you use that brain power on instead? And so you want to weigh that out in your environment. Next thing, teach the people around you. So help them be more understanding. If there's certain things that trigger you, tell them, in a nice way, right? Next one is letting the thoughts pass. So observing the thoughts, if you recognize it's RSD, just watching those thoughts versus like, oh, these are true, versus, oh, I'm watching these thoughts, but I'm not taking them on and integrating them and spiraling. And then delaying responses. So if you get that like, oh, I feel rejected, wait a little bit before you react, especially if you can react with rage or something emotionally charged, just wait a little bit. And then practicing self-care. So this is our second to last one. So just bringing in stuff to take care of yourself. When you get rejected by somebody and you feel horrible, what I used to do is I would turn on myself, and then I wouldn't take care of myself, and I wouldn't eat, and I wouldn't feed myself, and I wouldn't keep my spaces clean because I felt like I didn't deserve it. I had some deep self-worth stuff that I've spent a lot, like years and years on. And so just some deep stuff. And so it's like this radical act of love to get rejected and then do something nice for yourself. If you experience that, I would highly recommend that as a challenge, right? If you ever feel rejected by somebody or something, immediately do something nice for yourself. Get up and make some tea, or go wash your face, or text a friend, or watch something funny. That's a really cool way to start to rewire the spiral. And then lastly, make your business about a cause you believe in, and then frame it about helping people. So here's something, is, let's say you are doing a fundraiser. What's a cause you care about? Go ahead and type in the chat. What's a cause that somebody here cares about? Like Habitat for Humanity, Safe Alliance, animal rescues, feeding the hungry. So feeding the hungry, right? You have people who are starving, right? Let's just say, I'm going to make this exaggerated, but I want to give you an example, right? Like, you have people that are really hungry, that are starving, and you go door to door seeing if anybody has like canned food, right? They're not going to eat. Kids, we're talking kids that need food. We have adults, and you go door to door and you say, hey, we've got some hungry kids. The food pantry ran out of food, and so they're not going to have dinner tonight. Do you have anything you could share? If somebody says, I don't have anything right now, but good luck, are you going to spiral, or are you going to go to the next door? Right? You're going to go, I hope you go to the next door, right? Like, you're going to go, you're saying, okay. And you're going to act with urgency because you're going to help somebody. So one of the things you can do, if you're finding in your business with lead gen that you're struggling with this rejection sensitivity dysphoria, is one, tie it to a cause you believe in. Maybe you donate a certain percentage back after every sale, or maybe you just focus on, like, you are helping people, like you are. And so kind of reframing it, like, you're here to help people. You're not here to sell. You're not here to convince someone to buy a house. You're here to help people. So, and there are people out there that if you don't call them, they don't get your help. And of the realtors in your market, what percentage do you think genuinely care and know what they're doing like you do? What percentage? What percentage of the realtors and all the people in your MLS that are actually know what they're doing and actually care? Small, right? I bet it's less than 25%. It might be 10%, might be 5%, right? 10%. I think it's probably more like 10%, right? You have people who've been in the business for 20 years and they've sold 3 houses, you know what I mean? Or they don't care, or they don't know what they're doing, or they're stressed about paying their mortgage. And it's just like, they're not trying to help. So let's say 10%. I agree. I think it's more like 10% in the market. So if you don't call that person and they need to buy or sell a house, they have right? Because if it's 10% of the agents are helpful and would actually care like you, they have a 90% chance of having a worse experience because you didn't call, right? You've just sentenced them to a 90% chance of having a worse experience, being more stressed, making less money, or overpaying for a house, not feeling cared about. Maybe they get a house and the deed's not right and they're in this pickle for the rest of their lives, right? So you not calling them, you're actually taking that, like, then they'd have a good realtor. And I think that's helpful to think about too. So again, you're not calling to convince them to buy or sell. You're just asking if they need help. Just like if you are at like like if you go to a department store, let's go to, you say you go to JC Penney, right? And you're going, and this is my favorite analogy, you're going through clothes, and a person walks up that works there and says, hey, do you need any help? And you say, no, I'm just looking, right? And they go away. They're not going to go cry in the bathroom, right? You didn't reject them. You just rejected the help, right? And then 10, 15 minutes later, they see you and they come back and they say, hey, do you want that in a certain size? And you say, yeah, actually, do you have an extra large in this? And they say, yeah, let me go check, right? So if they just ran away and never talked to you again and hid in the bathroom and cried, but that wouldn't work, right? All you're rejecting they're rejecting the help. They're not rejecting you. That's another thing that really helps, like, psychologically with this. And so that's where it's easier to, like, all you're doing when you're calling is just seeing if people need help. That's it. You're not selling them. You're not convincing them. You're just caring about them and seeing if they need help. Cool. All right. Well, I don't even like to say goodbye, but I know I have to because we probably have to go sell some houses. So thank you for being here. Remember, give yourself self-care. And yeah, just let me know if you need anything. All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much.